Good evening, everybody. I'm Matthew, for those who didn't hear. So tonight, the way it goes is we're going to watch three videos that are three major, I guess you might say, questions about, or arguments. People might say why the Bible is not true or why Christianity is false or something like that. And we'll watch a video and then we'll discuss it afterwards. It'll be the videos are only about 3-4 minutes long. There's a lot in these videos, and the guy talks kind of fast, so you have your listening ears on. But he packs a lot of stuff into them. So we'll just watch the first one called Science Disproves God, and we'll just watch that one and we'll talk about it.
She blinded me with science. Science. That's the big word these days, isn't it? Science says this, science proves that. Science has all the answers. Science will one day explain everything. Science disproves God. Well, first of all, science doesn't say anything. Scientists do, which means a person has to interpret data or evidence. But hey, I know what people generally mean when they say science says, so I'll go along with it for the sake of simplicity. But let's at least make sure that when we say science, we're talking about the same thing. Pop over to the dictionary.com, circa 2022, you'll get these definitions. 1, a branch of knowledge or study dealing with a body of facts or truths systematically arranged and showing the operation of general laws. 2, systematic knowledge of the physical or material world gained through observation and experimentation. Okay, I'll accept those if you will. Makes sense, sounds good. But notice 2 things here. 1, showing the operation of general laws means the general laws must already be here to show. And observation and experimentation both require preconditions of intelligibility. What, you say? Just another way of saying that there are certain things that must already be in place, that must exist, and certain assumptions we make in order for us to do science at all. For instance, and bear with me here, science requires 1, a human being with a properly functioning brain and basically reliable senses, right? I mean, that's pretty important, but why do we suppose that our eyes, noses, and other senses reliably report stuff about the universe? Without this assumption, science would be impossible. Likewise, without our memories being basically reliable, we can't do science. 2, science requires the laws of nature to be orderly and consistent, right? If the laws of nature aren't consistent, like let's say the properties of gravity change every 3 seconds or something, you can't accurately test or repeat anything. Thus, there's no meaningful observation or experimentation. Thus, thou canst do science. 3, science requires laws of logic. Without them, you can't analyze ideas, reason properly, or determine what data or evidence means. Without them, simply put, you can't do science. 4, science requires objective morality. If you are in any way tempted to let greed, power, prestige, fame, or whatever alter the truth or get in the way of honest observation, experimentation, or truthful recording, then science would be a mess. Yet, why you ought to be truthful, why you ought to record data accurately, must be a virtue that exists before you can do meaningful science. Hey, look, simple fact is this. Without just these 4 preconditions, and there are others, there is no quote-unquote science, period. But here's the big cue for you. What worldview best explains these preconditions? Because in the end, a correct worldview must be logically consistent and be able to explain these preconditions. And there's only one that does. Follow along and dig what I dish out. Genesis 1:26 through 27, Romans 1:20, and Psalm 139:14 declare an all-knowing, all-powerful God made us in His image, and that we are fearfully and wonderfully made. This is why our senses are basically reliable. Jeremiah 33:25 and Colossians 1:17 declare He established His covenant with day and night in the fixed order of heaven and earth, and that He is before all things, and in Him all things hold together. This is why the universe is orderly and consistent. Isaiah 1:18 and Proverbs 22:17 call for us to reason together and to apply your mind to my knowledge. And 2 Timothy 2:13 adds, if we are faithless, He remains faithful, for He cannot deny Himself. This is where the laws of logic emanate, from the mind of a rational God. In Titus 1:2 it says, "In hope of eternal life, which God, who never lies, promised before the ages began." This is where objective morality flows from, the very nature of God, who cannot be inconsistent, deny himself, or lie. These are the non-arbitrary reasons Bible believers provide for the preconditions of intelligibility. Now, on atheism, on materialism, on evolutionism, if that's a word, how are these accounted for? How does accidental non-life produce life, let alone life with reliable senses? How does chaos cause order? How can laws of logic exist in a strictly material world? How do random mutations make morality? See, they really don't have logical, consistent answers. In fact, as Dr. Jason Lyle asserts, the logical prerequisites for knowledge, which most people take for granted, are provided only in biblical creation and would be impossible in an evolutionary or atheistic universe. So, there it is, my quasi-qualified questioners, quickly quizzing quantitative qualified quizzes quite quietly. There's only one worldview that is rational, logical, and best accounts for the preconditions of intelligibility on which science depends, and that, my friends, is the biblical worldview. So, this here notion, this here idea that science has somehow disproved God has been, like poetry in motion, debunked. Adios.
I told you, it's fast, and it goes by quickly, and he packs a lot of stuff into a 2 or 3, 4 minute video. So we'll just review it a little bit here. There's a difference between what science says and what scientists say, right? They say, when you say, I mean, what did we hear for the past, I guess, 6 years or whatever? It's follow the science, right? That's what we heard. That was a huge thing, right? And they always, no matter what they said, it was put out as incontrovertible proof, incontrovertible fact. The science, follow the science. But then, like 2 weeks later, be like, well, okay, it's changed now. It's changed now. It's changed now. Sometimes daily. So I get kind of, most scientists come up with a preconceived notion that supernatural doesn't matter, the Bible doesn't exist, isn't true. It's, and God, of course, isn't real. But he had some good points up there. We went through a human being with reliable functioning senses. We need that to do science, absolutely. We need the laws of nature to be consistent. That's obviously what we need to have science. The laws of logic, obviously. Without logic, you don't have science. Where I think a lot of scientists and even popular culture get wrong is the objective morality, because we are very much in a society where whatever you want to do, it's good. There's no objective morality. Morality is a construct, right? A societal construct of people who are trying to make sense of a world that they don't, that's of a meaningless life, right? Because it's all meaningless, right? Because there's no God, right? They're like, morality isn't objective. You can't say this is objectively good and this is objectively bad. You can't. Oh yeah, sure, some big things like murder is bad, of course. Everybody thinks that. Well, most people think maybe it's not serial killers, but everybody else thinks that, right? And it's like, and so you're like, but even even the people who don't believe anything about God, why is murder bad? Why is it bad? Or why is it good? Why is it good not to steal? That morality had to come from somewhere. There has to be some objective morality, or else the society would be impossible, and science, by extension, would be impossible. There has to be something objective. What did Rene Descartes say? He said, "I think, therefore I am." Right? But that's an invalid statement. You can't use yourself as your own reference point. The reference point has to be external, and it has to be unchanging. You can't use yourself as your own reference point. You reference yourself from that against that. I can say I am 1 foot from this chair. I'm 2 feet from the chair. I moved, not the chair. Right? It has to be, your reference point has to be external and unmovable or unchanging. So I think that in itself proves there has to be something more, that morality is objective. These 4 things have to be there. He made a good point. if you caught it, that without those four, and there are many others, there are many other reasons about what science requires, but those four are prerequisites for any kind of meaningful science. And to say that those four things there disprove God, I think proves just the opposite, because of number four, mostly. If number four is true, then the other three have to be true, because the other three prove that there was something that made morality. There's something that made even people who don't believe the Bible or don't believe God know that this is wrong and this is right. Even in toddlers.
They'll see another child crying, and their first instinct is to go and help that child or offer them something. I mean, we're born with that.
It's true. All right.
Even the people in other countries that have never heard the gospel, they still know right from wrong.
Exactly.
Because
It's instilled in people's heart. It may be marred by sin, but it's still in people's heart. You're exactly right. I mean, we were all made in the image and likeness of God. And before that, we had the perfect, righteousness with God and perfect relationship with Him. But sin marred it. But it's still we still have the conscience that God gave us and the morality that God gave us. And of course, once we're saved, the Holy Spirit helps us a lot in that.
they didn't have the 10 Commandments like we do.
Right. Even you're right though. Even without them.
They still knew when they did wrong.
Absolutely. So, he mentioned some of the other worldviews. How would you say some of these other worldviews do fall short? For example, let's say atheism. How would you say that falls short? He mentioned it up there. I mean, yeah.
It was.
I have said frequently that the biggest problem an atheist has is that God does not believe in atheists.
I think you're right. And I hate to break it to him, but atheism is just as much a religion as any other religion. You have to have a lot of faith to believe there is no God, and a lot more faith. Sometimes I think. Yeah, he brought up with evolutionism, if that's a word. He said that how does chaos go to order when the universe shows us it's the other way around, the second law of thermodynamics, entropy. It gets more ordered as it goes. It gets more disordered. It tends to disorder, or life from non-life. That was disproven in the 1800s, I think. Abiogenesis was disproven in the 1800s, I think. But I think it was the 1800s, something like that. But so I mean, those are the reasons that I think you can see that science does not disprove God. And those verses that he showed about and he kind of summarized, those are the actual proof texts how science does not disprove God. So we're going to go on to the next one now, where all roads lead to God. He's going to bring up something that I've referenced before a couple times, so we'll watch the video and then we'll talk about it.
You ever hear the phrase, all roads lead to God? On the surface, it seems wonderfully inclusive and emotionally satisfying. But is it true? And what exactly does it mean? Okay, second first. Typically, the statement is used to communicate that all religions, i.e., e.g., that is to say, all roads, as it were, are fundamentally the same, just superficially different, as the ubiquitous coexist bumper sticker commonly found on the Prius so cleverly attempts to convey. There is no right, true, or better religion. Come on, man. Just hop on any holy highway of your choosing, and boom. Ultimately, you'll run right into God, like it or not. In other words, believe what you want, true or false. Do whatever you feel, right or wrong. Place your faith in whomever you like, trustworthy or not. Follow any God that suits your lifestyle, real or fake. Doesn't really matter, because eventually all paths, esplanades, alleyways, off-ramps, U-turns, toll roads, dirt trails, highways, and byways, in fact, all roads more or less traveled, despite what Mr. Frost might say, with all their bumps, dips, and swerves, will ultimately merge into one inevitable dead end where some kind of mystical being awaits us all with open arms. Hey there. But Is that what the world's major religions really teach? Let's take a high-level survey of Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, and Buddhism, covering about 6.5 billion people out of the 7-something billion living on the planet today. But if you act now, you'll also get atheism, even if you think it's not a religion, because it really is. Either way, I include it because, well, this is my video, and what can you really do about it? Okay, let's break them down. When it comes to the existence of an all-knowing, all-powerful, monotheistic creator God, only 2 out of these religions would affirm this. When it comes to the name and nature of God, they all differ. When it comes to the meaning and purpose of life, they all differ. When it comes to the afterlife, well, again, they all differ. And finally, when it comes to Jesus Christ, a person they all acknowledge to some degree, Christians claim he is God incarnate, that he was crucified for our sins, rose from the grave, and is the only way to God. The others all disagree with one, more, or all of those claims. Now, with all of that, and believe me, that's just skimming the biggies, I ask you sincerely, do these religions all seem the same to you? I hope not, because most of them don't even claim to be a road to God in the first place. Faithful followers would all emphatically say each is different, and just common sense suggests that if they differ on major things, they are fundamentally different and only superficially the same, not the other way around. And one more thing, if one religion teaches something one or the others deny, well then, my pretties, they all can't be right. They can all be wrong, but not all right. Bum, bum, and all that jazz. Skidoo. Anyway, seems the deeper we go with this, the idea that all roads lead to God is just a vacuous spewing of nonsensical rhetoric, armed with deception and aimed at the wandering hearts of mankind. Yet, I gotta say, in one way, the feel-good utterance of the century is biblically spot on. Why? Because no matter what proverbial road we may follow, according to Rom 14:10-11, Rev 20:11, and a bunch of other verses presently scrolling across the bottom of your screen for your convenience, we will all ultimately stand before the throne of God in his presence and give an account of our lives, which is not what our sentence in question attempts to relate, which means it could have eternal consequences on one who believes it. So I gotta cut to the chase and tell it like it is, people. In complete defiance of the soteriologically schizoid, semantically substandard, syntactically suspicious, simplistically sentimental, silly, and sycophantic statement, I offer you the very words of Jesus himself, who said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Nobody comes to the Father except through me. Paraphrased to fit the metaphor, Jesus is the only road to God, period. Now, if anyone denies that claim, including anyone who asserts said sentence, it is either he that is right or Jesus. But suffice it to say, or however you say that, this grandiose, unfounded, and untrue catch-all proclamation that all roads lead to God has been debunked. Adios.
That one might have been faster than the first one. And when I first saw these videos, it was just they were just attachments in an email, and I was able to slow it down a little bit. But even then, I was just like, wow, there's a lot of stuff in here. But so, all roads lead to God. I liked his idea of that coexist bumper sticker. Every time I saw that, I was just like, no, we should all coexist, sure, but they're not all the same. And it was putting every religion as saying, my older brother, who's, heavens, how old is he now? He's older than me. He's 18 years older than me. He's an old man. I'm glad I'm not, but he in his bookshelf, I saw he had the Bible. That's great. He had the Bible on his bookshelf, right next to the Book of Mormon, right next to the Pearl of Great Price, right next to, the Koran, I believe, was in there too. I'm like, they're just all lined up the same. I was just like, man, that is. I mean, I can understand wanting maybe to reference them but he had them at the same level as the Bible, just right next to it, like it was another holy book. And that coexist bumper sticker does kind of stick in my craw sometimes. I'm just like, they're so blinded and lost, It's like he said, it sounds inclusive, it sounds great, all right. And we should all get along as best as we can, but we should always point people to Jesus, be trying to say, hey, we should all get along and be nice and kind, but Jesus Christ is the answer, I mean, he says that they can't possibly be equal because they all have different ideas about different things, about the monotheistic creator God, the name and nature of God, the meaning and purpose of life, the afterlife, and Jesus Christ. I mean, right there, if like you said, if one says something and the other one says this is not right, or they all differ, or no one's the same, or they all go say different ways, how can they possibly be all roads lead to God? Somebody's got to be wrong. If somebody's right, and it's not. I mean, and and somebody's wrong because they say the same thing, I mean, if two people say different things that are diametrically opposed, somebody has to be wrong. They can both be wrong, but they can't both be right. And so I think that all roads lead to God. I had a boss once tell me that as long as you're sincere, God's going to see that. I said, you could be sincerely wrong, though. I said, and I pulled up the most extreme example I could see. I said, the people who followed Hitler, were very, very sincere. A lot of them were, at least. Very sincere. I mean, to the point of suicide after he was, after Germany lost. They were very sincerely, but they were very sincerely wrong.
Well, the people that were in that cult that drank all the,
Ye-
there's been a couple of them.
Yeah.
They really believed it.
Yep.
So they were sincerely
But
following.
yeah,
what was true.
Jim Jones, exactly, down in South America.
But then they say, I don't believe the Bible. So how can they believe in Jesus Christ if they don't believe the Bible?
Well, that's a good point. That is a good point. But in this case, it's the religious people. The Bible is a great way to get to heaven, or to get to God. But so is the Quran. So is the Book of Mormon. These are the spiritual people who are I'm not religious, I'm spiritual. These are the people who believe that any road you want to take is okay, because eventually, like you said, you'll run into God whether you like it or not. And in a way, we all will. We all will run into God whether we like it or not. Yeah, Christians will like it. The people who are unbelievers, unfortunately, will have a different experience. So what it says here, what are common deviations from the truth of these doctrines that we see or hear commonly in our world? Anybody have any ideas about what common deviations from the truth, which would be the Bible, of these doctrines that we see or hear commonly in our world today?
In other Christian religions, or just in what way? What way do you mean?
Like in popular culture, even just from popular culture or other religions. I mean, I think, and tell me if I'm wrong. Well, yeah.
I think you're on the right track with coexist bumper sticker, and then seeing different religions starting to go with popular belief versus biblical belief. They're starting to deviate and say these things are okay because this group of people believe it, where in reality, if they stuck their guns, then,
That is a good point. You see a lot of drift, spiritual drift, even in churches that used to be Bible-believing fundamental churches. It's easy to see. I don't want to start saying stuff because I don't know what everybody believes here, but it is easy for spiritual drift to come in, where and yes, church is probably a little more informal now than it used to be. You used to, putting on your Sunday clothes and going to meeting, and, it was always suit and ties and everything, and women all wear dresses and stuff, and that's not frowned upon, but it's certainly much less formal.
So I was raised that way. You put on your Sunday best. You couldn't go in anything less, whatever. And then as I aged and I started to see the world around me, it's not that I don't believe that. Like a dress. My grandma said you cannot go to church if you're not in a dress. Most Sundays you will still find me in a dress because there's somewhere ingrained in my brain, right, that has to be. But if we all showed up every Sunday in suits and ties and dress perfect in every way, are we really welcoming the people in our community especially that don't have access to those things? We not just as Brown Street, but as Christians need to make ourselves available to everyone. And we can be, if we look a certain way, we might be unapproachable to them. They might think we can't understand their world.
That's a good point. And certainly dress does not mean you're a Christian, or how you dress doesn't determine your spirituality at all, or how much of a Christian, how good of a Christian you are. But it is easy to see the drift.
Yeah.
I mean, there are.
For the right reasons.
Huh?
So are we, have we drifted that way away from it because
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
I-
It's no longer, like, some people will say, oh, it's because I want to be approachable to the world and help them to see that they are welcome here, or whatever. But then there's a whole other group that will say, I'm tired, it's my only day off.
That is true.
I'm just trying to get there and get it done, it's something I'm checking off.
Absolutely, absolutely.
It has become just a way of living rather than a want to serve, you know?
Absolutely, and that's a good point. So I think his final point with John 14:6, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh unto the Father but by me. That's the proof text right there, that all roads do not lead to God. Only one road leads to God, and that's to Jesus Christ. And only by, and we all know that only by accepting him as our Savior can we hope to meet God in a less than, yes?
All other worldviews fit nicely on the broad way, but John 14:6, Jesus didn't say, I am a way.
That's true.
He said, I am the way.
You're absolutely right. You're right. And as I've said in my class maybe once or twice, that Satan's not so much interested in the church of Satan back in the woods somewhere, because the liberal church on the corner saying we're okay, we're all okay. That's where Satan wants people to go. He is not so much worried about people who worship him or whatever. That the liberal church on the corner is doing the exact same stuff. So we got one more video to go. It's called "The Bible Can't Be Trusted," and then we'll talk about it for a little bit.
It's extremely popular these days to say the Bible can't be trusted, but really? Now, my goal here is not to give a bunch of proofs like the unassailable prophecy proof, the fact that there are literally hundreds of precise, clear, and specific future events spoken in the Bible, sometimes hundreds of years before they actually happen. No other book can claim that, but who cares? I'm not even going to dig into the internal consistency proof that demonstrates the amazing unity of the Bible, or even its miraculous survival over the centuries. No. I'm just going to ask you to be honest and follow along. Let's say you find a piece of paper in a hotel with this written on it. It was at 822 5th Street in someplace Texas when Scott Somebody was mayor. Jim lived there with his wife and 2 daughters. Most people called him Little Jim. He liked to wear a gray baseball cap and blue overalls. He was a manager of a place called Corner Pantry, where he worked for a long time. The town called him a hero because he fought in a war. He's also a hero because one rainy day he lifted a huge car off of a child all by himself. He died on April 4th, 1990. 500 people were at his funeral. Signed, Polly. That's it. Now, what part do you believe and what part are you skeptical about? If you are skeptical, why? Because you automatically rule out certain kinds of things because a professor or friend told you something? Or did you investigate for yourself? Hey, I'm just asking. Now, for the fun of it, yes, this is actually fun for me. Let's just say you don't believe any of it and you're determined to prove it all wrong. Okay, first thing you do is pop up a map and look for someplace Texas. Well, there it is. It's a real place. You go there and find 822 5th Street. Facts are checking out, but you're not easily fooled. You go to the local newspaper archives and you find that Scott Somebody was indeed the mayor, and you see Little Jim died on April 4th, 1990. The article also mentions his service in the Army and that around 500 people were at Little Jim's funeral. But wait a second. You notice the word manager is misspelled on that piece of paper, and 2 words were misread. Trickery, you shout. This writer has concocted a story to fool us and somehow got all these things to line up with their foolhardy fabrication. You don't have a motive or a reason, but come on. You're not going to let this deplorable, downright dubious dummy deceive a determined decoder destined to demystify delirious drivel, so you focus on the car lifting scenario. If you can disprove that, you assume for some arbitrary reason the whole story is a lie. So you locate an old storage place that one of Little Jim's daughters rents. You find a drawing of a man lifting a car off a girl, a license plate, and another piece of paper that says, "Thank you, Dad, for saving my sister's life. I saw a miracle that day." You ponder for a moment, then consider the best explanation. Well, I think you get where I'm going. The Bible is much like Polly's letter, citing names, places, and events which can be investigated. So happens over 25,000 archaeological finds have confirmed people, places, and events in the Bible. Not one has ever refuted it. Then we have the question of motive. Why would Polly put all these facts in her letter, then lie or somehow make a mistake about the most important part of the story that she saw with her own eyes? Even more, how is it that the writers of the Bible get all the common things right, but somehow get the uncommon things wrong, especially the New Testament writers whose lives were on the line. I mean, would you put your life on the line and testify to something you were unsure about or knew was a lie? No way, not a chance. No, these writers, like honest historical writers, other ancient biographers, or dutiful journalists today, recorded what they witnessed, what they heard from eyewitnesses, what they investigated, and what was passed down to them from trustworthy people. They weren't tricked, fooled, mistaken, or making stuff up. Just listen. Now the rest of the acts of Jeroboam, how he warred and how he reigned, behold, they are written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Israel. For we did not follow cleverly devised myths when we made known to you the power and coming of our Lord Jesus Christ, but we were eyewitnesses of his majesty. Simple and straightforward, right? This is how most of the Bible is written. Don't believe me? Read it for yourself. But suffice to say, this ridiculous assertion, this unjustified claim that the Bible can't be trusted has been debunked. Adios.
That was the slowest one of all. I think so. Right. Right. I mean, but it is true. I mean, I think people who, just about everybody who says the Bible can't be trusted has never read more than 3 or 4 verses from it. They just hear, they're regurgitating what they heard. They haven't read it for themselves. If they did, they would realize maybe there's something, there's something to this,
It's not just about reading the Bible. Literally, we'll read a history book on presidents that we've never met, and we believe that those are real, and we do no other research. We just read that one book, or we trust our history teacher. But you could do the same thing with the Bible, but no one ever does that.
Nope. But then again, the Bible claims to be a lot more than just a history book. Although its history is true,
Yes.
it does claim to be a lot more. But you're right. We take things we hear from experts all the time, and God is the ultimate expert, and He's written us a book. But people don't want to believe it sometimes. So this handout here asks a couple of interesting questions, and the first one and the third one are really similar. So I'll just ask the third one. What do you think are the actual reasons people want to say the Bible can't be trusted?
Because they think we can't prove it.
Okay, they think we can't prove it. Yeah.
Well, it takes away the accountability that they would have, because if you can just say, I don't trust the Bible, I don't believe the Bible, it's not true, well then I don't have to be convicted by the things it's telling me I need to change in my life, because it's just a silly book like every other book.
Exactly. It tells me I can't live this way anymore, or however I'm living. It wants me to change things. It wants me to give my life over to submit to somebody else. I'm my own boss. Nobody tells me what to do. I think that's a good point. We can't prove it, and it tells us that we're doing something that we're not supposed to be doing. And people they don't like that. Of course, very few people do. Until they're afraid that if they submit themselves to God and become a Christian, a true Christian, that they'll be missing out on something. They'll be missing out on all the fun they could have, all the good stuff that the world has to offer, which more often than not actually leads to destruction and death. But they don't see the end result yet. But the Bible is a warning. Say this stuff leads to destruction, But like you said, they don't really want to trust it, because if they trust it, then they have to make some changes.
They think it's going to throw us off too. If you say, the train of thought is leaving. It's full of contradictions.
Yeah, that's what they say.
Find me one.
Yeah.
They won't do it.
They won't be able to. Because they don't know. They're just, again, regurgitating what they've heard from somebody else. There's a lot of that going on today. You challenge somebody with a mixed an assertion, and they're like, they don't know, because they've been told what to think, not how. And then when you challenge them with a question, they have no idea where to go, and they get angry, more often than not. We're gonna take the next 10 minutes. I would like you to pair up or 3 up or whatever group, make small groups, people sitting around you. And I'd like you to pray that we might be able to help somebody with some of these insights and the stuff we heard last 2 weeks, that we could point people to Jesus. Obviously, if you have something heavy on your heart, share that too if you want to. We'll take the next few minutes, and then I'll close this out in prayer at the time. So if you guys want to just group up to whoever's around you, and we'll pray that we might be able to point people to the truth through some of this stuff. Yes.
Just kind of goes along with that. I'd seen a video one time that kind of answers some questions on why should I believe the Bible over the Quran or over something else. That the Bible was written by about 40 different men on 3 different continents in 3 different languages over about a 2,400 year time span. That all 66 individual books written by all those people, that they all line up perfectly. That they're, like Mary was saying, that there is no contradictions in there. How do you make that happen with that variety there? And then I saw a map one time that I think it was over 60,000 references from one verse to another. So you have things that happened in the Old Testament that came true
Yep.
in the New Testament.
Yep.
And so you have all those facts that are kind of irrefutable. And so it's not even a faith thing. That's a science thing or a fact thing.
Right.
You had the apostles who, after Christ went back to heaven, I think 11 of the 12 were martyred, and most of them in horrific ways.
Yep.
And that all they had to do was say, "Hey, we've been telling a lie this whole time that Jesus guy was a phony." That's all they had to do, and they wouldn't have been killed. And maybe they would have held that until the first or the second guy got brutally murdered, and then the rest of them go, "You know what? This isn't worth it." But all of them held to that truth. And I heard a thing not too long ago where it said, a guy says, you know why I believe that the Bible is true and why the apostles had that truth is because of Watergate. They said, that Watergate scandal, that there were 12 people who knew the truth, what happened, and they lasted 3 days before they cracked. Never mind, it was a lie, it was a cover up, we did all these wrong things. So it's like, if modern day men can't hold that lie for more than just a few days, but the apostles, they were all martyred.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. I think that's a good point. I mean, why would you hold a lie that there's no reason to? They certainly weren't going to get rich off of this, So no, that absolutely. It's a good point. It's a good point. So we should go ahead and get some small groups going. I'm not going to group you up, just whoever's sitting next to you, around you. Just pray that we can use these truths. Pray that God will use us to point people to Jesus. Pray that, and if, of course, like I said, if there's a prayer request that you feel led to share, go ahead and share that too. And at 8 o'clock.